The Fairmont Royal York Hotel in Toronto is a place of elegance, history, and prestige. Its grand architecture and luxurious interiors have stood as a testament to timeless sophistication since its opening in 1929. But beneath the surface of this iconic hotel, known for hosting royalty, celebrities, and dignitaries, lies a world that defies logical explanation. The hotel, while basking in its legacy, carries with it a reputation for being haunted, a place where the echoes of the past seem to linger far beyond their time. Guests and staff have recounted eerie experiences, stories that intertwine with the walls of the Royal York, blending history with mystery. The rumors began decades ago, whispered in hushed tones by staff who worked the late shifts and guests who awoke to sights and sounds they couldn't explain. One story in particular became almost folklore among the employees. It was about room 873, a suite on one of the upper floors that, according to legend, was sealed off permanently after a series of strange and unsettling events. The tale begins with a tragedy. A family, a man, his wife, and their young daughter checked into the room one winter evening. By morning, hotel staff found the suite in chaos, the man's wife and child lifeless, and the man himself missing. No records remain of this incident, but those who have worked at the hotel swear by its truth. Attempts to clean and renovate the room over the years were reportedly interrupted by unexplained occurrences, lights flickering uncontrollably, blood-like stains reappearing on the walls despite repainting, and a chilling sensation that lingered long after anyone entered the space. Eventually, the decision was made to seal the room entirely, leaving a blank wall where a door once stood. Guests who stay near the area where room 873 once existed often report hearing faint sounds at night, soft cries of a child, distant whispers, and occasionally loud thuds that seem to emanate from behind the sealed wall. Some claim to have seen fleeting shadows or felt a cold draft when walking down the corridor, even in the height of summer. The staff, well accustomed to such stories, offer no explanations, only nervous smiles when asked about the room. Yet the sealed door stands as a silent witness to something, a reminder of a past too unsettling to forget. It isn't just the sealed room that fuels the Royal York's haunted reputation. Many of the suites and common areas seem to host visitors from another realm. In room 1046, guests have reported waking in the middle of the night to the feeling of someone sitting on the edge of the bed, though the room remains empty. Others have described a figure standing by the window, staring out at the city skyline, only to vanish when approached. Electrical disturbances, such as lights turning on and off by themselves or the television flickering without reason, have become so frequent that they no longer surprise seasoned employees. A few guests have even packed their bags in the middle of the night, demanding to be moved to another floor. The hallways, too, carry an unsettling energy. Cleaning staff, while tidying rooms late at night, have shared tales of hearing footsteps behind them, only to find no one there. One housekeeper vividly remembers the sound of a child giggling near the elevators at 3 a.m., even though no children were staying at the hotel at the time. She followed the sound, hoping to find its source, but the laughter seemed to move just ahead of her, always out of reach, until it abruptly stopped. Since then, she refuses to work night shifts. Another staff member spoke of feeling a hand lightly brush her arm while she was arranging towels, only to turn and find no one in sight. She left the hotel shortly after, convinced that whatever lingered in its corridors was not something she wanted to encounter again. Perhaps the most famous spirit in the hotel is the phantom bellboy. Guests staying in various rooms have described seeing a man in an old-fashioned bellboy uniform standing in the hallways or outside their doors. He appears courteous, sometimes tipping his hat or offering assistance. However, when guests turn to look for him again, he vanishes. This apparition has become something of a legend among the staff, who believe it to be the ghost of a bellboy who worked at the hotel in the early days and passed away suddenly while on duty. His dedication to his role seems to have transcended death, as he continues to serve guests, even in his spectral form. The Crystal Ballroom, one of the Royal York's most stunning features, has its own share of ghostly tales. Though it was closed for many years before undergoing a renovation, stories of its haunting persisted throughout its dormant period. Security guards making rounds often reported hearing faint music emanating from the locked ballroom. Some claimed to hear laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the soft rustle of dresses, as though a grand party was underway. When they entered to investigate, The room was always silent and empty, but the air felt heavy, as if the space itself remembered the celebrations that once took place there. On a particularly quiet night, a guard reported seeing a faint figure twirling in the moonlight streaming through the windows, a solitary dancer in an endless waltz. The basement and the tunnels beneath the hotel, which connect to Toronto's PTH system, hold a different kind of unease. These dimly lit corridors, with their labyrinthine layout, are rarely frequented by guests but are essential for the staff. Many of them have stories about strange noises, footsteps echoing in empty halls, doors creaking open without explanation, and whispers that seem to come from the walls themselves. One maintenance worker recounted an incident where he felt a cold hand brush against his shoulder while he was fixing a pipe. When he turned, the hallway behind him was empty, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Another staff member described seeing a shadow move across the far end of the tunnel, only to disappear into the darkness. Despite their unease, most employees shrug off the occurrences, rationalizing them as tricks of the mind, though their hurried steps suggest otherwise. Even the elevators at the Royal York have been the source of supernatural stories. A night manager once reviewed security footage after receiving a report of an elevator behaving erratically. The footage showed the elevator moving between floors on its own, its doors opening and closing repeatedly on the 14th floor. Despite no buttons being pressed and no passengers inside, the phenomenon continued for several minutes before the elevator abruptly stopped and resumed normal operation. Guests have also reported the sensation of an unseen presence standing close in the confined space, an inexplicable chill that raises the hairs on the back of the neck. Despite the numerous tales of hauntings, the Fairmont Royal York remains a cherished institution. For many, the possibility of encountering a ghost adds to the hotel's allure, making their stay a unique and unforgettable experience. Guests who come seeking luxury and history often leave with a story to tell, whether it's a flickering light, an unexplained sound, or a fleeting shadow seen out of the corner of their eye. Each experience adds another layer to the hotel's mystique, a place where time and reality seem to blur. The Fairmont Royal York is more than just a hotel. It is a place where the past and present intertwine, where history comes alive in unexpected ways. Whether one believes in the supernatural or not, there is no denying the air of mystery that surrounds this grand building. For those who dare to explore its halls and stay in its rooms, the Royal York offers not just a glimpse into a bygone era, but perhaps a brush with the otherworldly as well. Beneath the grandeur of Quebec City lies an unsettling past, and nowhere is it more alive than in the towering spires of Chateau Frontenac. Its elegant facade, a monument to history and wealth, masks a chilling tale whispered through its ornate halls, a story that intertwines with the restless spirit of Louis de Bouade, the Count of Frontenac, who ruled New France with ambition, passion, and a legacy of untimely death. Emma Rousseau, a young historian with a fascination for French colonial history, arrived in Quebec City for a conference. Her itinerary included a stay at the Chateau Frontenac, a place she had always admired for its opulence and storied past. She checked into room 441, a corner suite with panoramic views of the St. Lawrence River. The room's antique furnishings gave it an air of timeless elegance, though a faint chill lingered in the air despite the warm July evening. As Emma unpacked her suitcase, she felt an odd sensation like being watched. Dismissing it as exhaustion from her flight, she explored the room. Her fingers brushed against the embroidered coverlet on the bed when the sensation intensified, accompanied by a faint whisper, too soft to discern. She froze, heart pounding, but the room fell silent. She laughed nervously. "You're letting your imagination run wild," she told herself. That night, Emma dreamt of a man clad in 17th century French attire. His eyes were piercing, his presence commanding, yet sorrowful. He introduced himself as Louis de Bouade, his voice echoing in her mind. He spoke of betrayal, love lost, and a desperate yearning for peace. The dream ended abruptly with the sensation of cold fingers brushing her hand. Emma awoke drenched in sweat. The memory of the dream was vivid, too vivid. Shaking it off, she prepared for the day, convincing herself it was a byproduct of overexposure to the shadow's history. But as she stepped into the hallway, the air around her seemed heavier, the silence oppressive. After the conference, Emma decided to delve into the chateau's archives. The historian in her couldn't resist exploring its haunted reputation. The records revealed the Chateau Frontenac had been built on the site of an earlier fort. Louis de Bouade had governed New France from nearby, and his ashes, per his dying wish, were meant to be returned to his beloved homeland. However, due to political strife, his remains were instead buried in Quebec City, a fate he had considered a curse. Perhaps his spirit lingers because of this unfulfilled wish, Emma mused aloud. The librarian, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, leaned in. Many believe so, she whispered. Guests have reported seeing his apparition, especially on the 4th floor. Some say he seeks a messenger to carry his final plea. Returning to her room, Emma found it unusually cold, despite the midsummer heat. Her dream journal, left on the nightstand, was open to a blank page. A single phrase, written in elegant cursive, now filled the page, "Help me find peace." Her hands trembled as she closed the journal. Could it have been a prank? Or was something truly supernatural at play? That night, the haunting escalated. The whispers grew louder, forming disjointed sentences in French. Mon amour, le serment trahison. My love, the vow, betrayal. The chandelier swayed as though a phantom wind had swept through. Shadows coalesced in the corners, twisting into forms that vanished when she turned to look. Then she saw him. Louis de Bouade stood by the window, his face illuminated by moonlight. His eyes bore into hers, filled with anguish. "You must listen," he said, his voice a blend of authority and despair. "I cannot rest. They broke their word, and my heart is tethered to this place." Through fragmented encounters over the next few nights, Louis recounted his story. He had fallen in love with a woman named Catherine, but political rivalries had kept them apart. On his deathbed, he made his closest allies promise to reunite him with her in France, where he believed their souls could be at peace. But the promise was broken. Instead of Catherine's homeland, his ashes were interred in the cold soil of New France. "Find her," he implored. "Find my Catherine and reunite us." Emma's rational mind struggled to reconcile the experience, yet deep down she felt compelled to help. With every encounter, Louis's anguish became her own. She scoured historical records for traces of Catherine, but found only a mention of her fleeing to France after his death, never to return. Desperate for answers, Emma sought the help of a local medium. They conducted a séance in her room, the air thick with anticipation and unease. The medium connected with the spirit, her voice taking on an otherworldly tone. "Louis, you are trapped by your own sorrow," she said. "Emma cannot bring Catherine to you, but she can carry your message to her descendants. Will that be enough?" The spirit hesitated before replying, "Yes, if only my words reach her bloodline." Emma found herself unable to leave Chateau Frontenac. Night after night she wandered its corridors, now attuned to the energy that pulsed within the walls. She encountered other guests who shared similar stories, whispers at midnight, the feeling of unseen hands brushing past, and shadows that seemed alive. One evening she ventured into the chateau's less visited lower levels, a maze of storage rooms and abandoned servant quarters. There she discovered a small chapel hidden, forgotten, but perfectly preserved. An inscription caught her eye, "Pour l'âme tourmée," for the tormented soul. The air was thick with sorrow, as though it had absorbed centuries of grief. Louis's presence was undeniable here. This space, Emma realized, had been a sanctuary for him during his earthly life, and now it was a prison for his spirit. Emma returned to the archives with renewed determination, piecing together fragments of Louis and Catherine's history. She learned of a love letter written by Louis, addressed to Catherine, that had never reached her. Local folklore suggested the letter was hidden within the chateau's walls, its retrieval the key to freeing his spirit. She enlisted the help of the chateau's maintenance staff to search for hidden compartments. Days later, behind a loose stone in the fireplace of room 441, they found an aged envelope sealed with wax. The letter was a heartfelt plea for Catherine's forgiveness and a declaration of eternal love. Emma arranged for the letter to be delivered to Catherine's descendants in France. When it reached its destination, something extraordinary happened. The chapel in the chateau's lower levels, long silent, filled with the sound of faint, melodic chanting. Visitors reported feeling an overwhelming sense of peace, as though centuries of anguish had finally lifted. Emma's stay at Chateau Frontenac changed her forever. She wrote extensively about her experience, blending history and the supernatural in a book that captivated readers worldwide. The chateau, now free from its heaviest hauntings, retained an air of mystery, with Louis's story adding depth to its legacy. Guests still claim to catch glimpses of him, but now his presence is serene, a guardian of the chateau rather than a tormented soul. And for Emma, each visit to the Grand Hotel serves as a reminder of the invisible threads connecting past and present a legacy of love, loss, and redemption.